make it, so at the last moment they substituted
Okay.
him.
I guess you'll be good.
I can give you all the dirt on this guy, though. What's up? Who's got the first question?
So, for the purposes of our recording, can you just state your name and what you do?
Of course, this is Troy Baker. I get to play Lego Batman. Did I do it properly? It's good to see you again, by the way.
Yeah,
too,
you
man.
too.
You as well. We had a cool hallway moment, which is awesome. I know San Diego's the big show, but New York always just feels more like home to me. It still feels like a Comic-Con as opposed to...
Yeah, as opposed to feeling like a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, and there's still, there's great comics on the floor. And, at San Diego, it kind of gets comics. There's going to be in the back hall across the bay. So, this is kind of a good time for me to nerd out. Who's got a first question?
So you've been voicing Batman for a while now.
I know, it's crazy.
I was wondering if the way you're playing Batman now, you feel like it's changed from when you started.
I think the core of it, no.
Yeah.
But I think, as the script changes, the stories change, and as they start adding in different characters, you need to adapt a little bit. Arthur Parsons was just walking around, and he was like, "Do you like doing the games?" I said, "Who has a question?" He goes, "Do you like doing the games or the movies better?" I was like, "Oh, the games, intrinsically." But we did it. We set one thing up in Lego Batman 2, and then once we actually did the movies for that, it expanded and it grew. So I think that you get to see a little bit more, but I don't know if it actually changes.
Yeah.
I think you maybe get to see some sides. Like for me, once we started talking about, Batman joining the Justice League and pulling from the comics, especially, and saying how resistant he was to joining the Justice League, and the fact that he has a black box with everyone's weakness in it, that's not a funny thing to do.
Yeah.
So the challenge for us is, how do we take that and make that funny?
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to be too glib about this, but I think that's a kind of cool lesson in life, is that you can take the darkest thing in the world and find a way to make it funny. Humor is just tragedy plus time.
Yeah.
So if that makes any sense. I'm just going to
Makes plenty of sense.
I'm going to go very meta and philosophical today. Who is Batman?
Yeah.
What is a Batman?
I want to ask you, what attracts you to superheroes? Because you've been a lot of superheroes. What is it about them that you love so much?
I mean, my first foray into nerddom was definitely through graphic novels. The first graphic novel I ever bought was a pocket-sized Batman origin story.
Oh, nice.
And then that got me into Batman, and I just kind of spider-webbed off of that. And even over the last few years, I've gotten away from the typical, which a lot of people have, stuff that Image and Boom have done, where it's not your traditional superhero.
Yeah, it's different.
We think about graphic novels and we think about Batman, Superman, but I think there's a lot of really good stories to be told in that medium that can only be told in that medium. And something is lost in translation when it gets put into a different kind of, whether it be TV or film. That being said, though, I think with Gotham, I've really been surprised at how good Arrow and Flash is. Because to be honest with you, those were the characters that I cared about the least. And for them to be able to take that and serialize it and make it actually, and Stephen Amell is just a great dude, first of all. But even with Daredevil, Daredevil was one of my first, if we can cross lines from DC into Marvel for a second, and not having...
It's Comic-Con, it's okay.
It's okay. Let's make sure no one explodes. Warner Brothers is going, shut up! But the fact that I was super hesitant to Charlie Cox, because I was that's not Daredevil at all. Matt Murdock must have either blonde or maybe red hair.
Yeah.
But to take this, brown-haired, black-eyed Irish dude, I was like, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, you believed it.
I really believed it, and he's a badass fighter. So for me, all I care about is being good. And someone asked a question earlier, is how does it feel to know that, just as the first time I ever heard Batman just speak from a graphic novel standpoint was the animated series. Mm-hmm. I'd seen the movies, I'd watched 66 Batman with Adam West, but for this, it was the first time that the same thing that I was seeing, and the art style was incredibly similar to what was going on in the comics at the time. So to give that a voice, Kevin Conroy became my Batman. And it was how does it feel to know that you could be someone's introduction to that character? I'm like, poop, pants.
Oh, no.
But that's awesome, and I'm sure Kevin in, 90 never thought he was just doing a job. he famously tells the story that he had no idea what the show looked like, what it was going to be really, until they brought he and Mark in to do a screening of it. And he just lost his mind. He was like, I had no idea it was this. I would have done so many things differently and better. And then, of course, they ran for 5 years and were able to build upon that. And the art style changed through that, too. So there's a lot of similarities between the animated series and the graphic novel stuff. Yep.
I have a question.
Yep.
Now you've done work with like animated movies like this, and you've done work on the Telltale games.
Yep.
What is the difference? Is there a lot of difference between working on those two projects?
Telltale really kind of they think of themselves and they run themselves more like a network, a studio than they do a dev. They know their mechanics and their systemics are very, very simple, which I think makes them very palatable for anybody. I know a lot of people who aren't gamers, but they'll play them. I play all Telltale games on my iPad, which the people at Telltale think is hilarious. And every time I was like, when is this coming out? They're like, well, it's coming out. For you, it'll be coming out a week later. You know, but I don't have the luxury of like dragging my PS4 or my Xbox onto a plane. But if I have a 6-hour flight from LA to New York, I can punch up my iPad and play a kick-ass, console game on my iPad. And that series specifically has meant so much to me. The great characters, incredible writers. I was a huge fan of Telltale games. I played Jurassic Park. Not saying it was good, but I played it. The Back to the Future series, I still want to have one more episode. I would kill to have one more episode of the Back to the Future series because it, to me, was the fourth movie. It was incredible.
Yeah, man.
And of course, Walking Dead. The Clementine moment was one of the best moments in gaming for me. And that was right before Last of Us came out too, so we were kind of like, hey, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But for me to be able to play something, we just wrapped, obviously we're putting out the finale for that. We were almost in tears. No, we were in tears. I'll own it. Nick Herman, the director, and I they Skyped down from San Francisco, and it was just a beautiful moment. I feel like we made something really, really special. And it's moments like that when, whether it be on a Telltale game or The Last of Us or Bioshock or this, where every once in a while you kind of poke your head above the surface and look at everything from a global standpoint and go, this is pretty freaking rad. Like, this is my job. Like, this is what I get to do on a 9-to-5 basis, or 10-to-6, depending upon the stuff.
What was cool about that was, like, I also noticed that you worked with Ashley Johnson on The Last of Us, and then she also showed up in Tales from the Borderlands in this season as...
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
They asked, it was like, who do we get for this? And me and Laura Bailey both were like, you got to get Ashley. And they were like, well, oh my God, we'd love to get Ashley. There's no way we can get her. We're like, let me text her real quick because I know she loves these games. Ashley was absolutely down to do it, and they ended up changing the character, rewriting the character for Ashley. So that's pretty cool. And someone asked the question today in the panel, was like, since we've been doing this for a while now, do you find yourself writing more for the character? And I think that we've got such a team effort on making these games or these movies that Brandon can understand, okay, at this point now I know that Troy's going to kind of do this, or we got Phil that's coming in as Brainiac. We know we can punch this up and Phil can really make it land. And so it really comes down to a team effort. It really comes down to, they trust us to bring our skill, to these characters, and we trust them that they're going to write really good pages and put out something that's really good.
So with your latest, I know you released an album a few months ago.
Almost a year ago to the day, because the first time I ever gave it out was right on New York Comic Con. I got to go to Central Park.
Are you trying to get more of your music into your products now, like into your works now?
I of course I think about that. I think that would be super awesome. I always want to do something that's appropriate, but it's really weird, and I think one of the things that has kept me from, there's people that we work with all the time that, there were guys from Arkham Knight that were like, let me hear one of your songs and see if we can put it in there. Like, that'd be kind of weird if, Red Hood was singing in the middle of this. Or Two-Face, however you want to look at it. Spoiler, sorry, if you haven't played it. But I think that would be fun to do, and every once in a while I tease myself by thinking about like scoring some stuff or like writing something, and then I think about my friends like Austin Wintry, who is really good at doing that, and my ego gets put aside. I was like, you really, if there was an opportunity for me to play some music in here, this is the guy that really should do it. Austin did the soundtrack for Journey.
Nice.
Not the band, the game.
Yeah, I know.
He writes all of Journey's music for it. Steve Perry has never written a song. So that's kind of it. What else?
Sorry.
Yeah, beyond the Lego DC stuff, what's next for you? Are there some projects you'd like people to know about?
Of course. Uncharted 4 is coming out March 16th, I believe, we've announced. It's in March. You can definitely quote that. If it's not 16th, erase that part. The final episode of Tales from the Borderlands is coming out this month, which is awesome. I think it's October 20th, I think they may have announced. I'm not sure. Is that it? Okay. I'm just spoiling all of these street dates. I'm like, shut up! This will be coming out. The Lego, what's the Cosmic Clash? I'm just going to give you the actual, this button on the name of this. It's going to be coming out in March. So there's some pretty cool stuff that's on the horizon for us. Yeah.
Where do you mentioned being a big comic book reader. Is there anything you are reading right now, or even watching or listening to, that you wish more people were interested in?
I need to go back and finish. I picked up, and I was a huge fan of Y: The Last Man.
Yeah.
And so I think Brian's an incredible writer, so I picked up Saga, and I need to finish it. I need to see it through, because I think starting to read Saga made me miss Y so much.
Yeah.
That I walked away from it. Still, one of my favorite series, speaking of like kind of out of the outer fringe, is the Irredeemable and
Irredeemable was fantastic.
And what's it?
Incorruptible.
Incorruptible, yeah.
That to me was just the most fascinating. It kind of got weird in the end, or in the middle, but the way that they buttoned it up was incredible. And it's the one thing that we always think about is what would happen if Superman had a really bad day.
Yeah.
So I looked at comics like that. There was who is Jake Ellis? I don't know if anybody knows it.
Yeah.
Have you ever read? It's a one and done series. I'm trying to remember who the writer is, and he's probably here. Okay. But those are some of the things that I look to, and I'm always open to suggestions too. So if you guys have anything that you're really digging on, let me know. I read them on my iPad again because they're way easier than carting around a bunch of trades.
Oh, it's the best.
Or if you like Brian K. Vaughan, you should check out Pride of Baghdad.
Pride of Baghdad?
Yeah, I call it the messed up Lion King.
Yeah. You're talking my language now.
There you go. Just check out Pride of Baghdad.
Absolutely. Sure. Who's got the last question? Go for it.
You recently did Joker in Batman Unlimited.
Yep.
Monster Mayhem.
Yep.
Good job. Is there anything on the table to potentially continue with that, either as Joker or as a different character? You know, the Unlimited series.
Dude, well, hopefully, because Roger does such a great job. I love hearing Roger as Batman. And who knows, I hope that they continue doing that. I mean, they've got their plate full right now. Warner Brothers Animation has a lot going on. Anytime those guys want me to step in, and the way that I look at it is not sub for Mark, but I'm grateful to be thought of as a stand-in for Mark, because to me he will forever and always be the Joker. And there's so much. If I was brought in to do my own version of the Joker, I would really need a lot of help. I don't know how I would do that. But it's something that if I'm ever given the opportunity, it's like, bring in the second string. I'll be like, yes, you know.
Could we hear a quick Joker clip? How about would you just say, "Do you miss me?" from Batman Endgame?
Can I give you one of my favorite quotes?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, from Arkham, not Arkham Origins. Oh my God, Assault on Arkham. A line that I thought was going to get cut. There's no way this thing is going to make it to the final thing. Was when he thinks he shoots Batman and he turns around and holds up the head. He goes, "Denzel, what have they done to you?" One of my favorite lines ever, and I'm glad that it actually stuck in. So there's your little joke.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you.
My pleasure, man.